thanks very much for your time, Vikram.
My pleasure.
But you know what? I have to start off by saying I can't call you Vikram anymore. Do I have to call you Dr. Vij?
No,
after...
you can call me Vikram because that's what I've studied.
I see.
Getting a doctorate was a great compliment.
Yeah.
And did you know that in 2016, I'm getting a second doctorate from UBC?
No.
So I'm not even a graduate,
I see.
and I'm getting 2 PhDs
Fantastic.
in 2 years.
Yeah. There's some purists who say, well, Vij's is Indian-like food, but perhaps it's not pure Indian. So how would you address the purist argument?
I am an alloy of India, Austria, Canada. That's what hardens me. That's what makes me who I am. Pure gold is very soft. It can never be pure. You can never use it as an ornament.
No.
Even if you want to make gold into an ornament, it has to be 22 carats, which means it has to have something in it to give it a sturdiness. That's what life is. That's what cuisines are meant to be. You cannot have the purest form of food because the water is different, the eggplant is different, the cauliflower is different, the chicken is different. How can you expect the food that is going to taste the way it tastes in India to taste like that in Canada?
Yeah.
We have beautiful farmers. It's the same thing with beer. Why would you want to have an Indian beer flown in from India when you can have beautiful local beer available here? So tell the purists they can take a hike.
That's not the word you were going to use. What is your vision and where do you go from here?
Long-term goal is that I want everybody to enjoy my cuisine, my culture once a week. So they can have Dutch food one day, they can have German food one day, they can have Vietnamese food one day, Malaysian, Chinese, and Indian one day. Have it different cuisines during the week. It's fun. Why would you want to have just meat and potatoes all the time? How boring is that? And I think when you eat cuisines from different parts of the world, I mean, you're a well-traveled person, and when you eat cuisines from Singapore or from Malaysia or any other places, you build tolerances to each other.
Yeah.
It's so important that we don't live in our own cocoon and say that's the only thing I eat and that's the only thing I like. You build tolerances, and when you build tolerances, you actually understand more people.
There is a lot of business sense in this, and of course you enjoyed working with Dragon's Den. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Being a first Indo-Canadian to get into that platform was extremely tough. It took 2 years for me to convince them that I'm not going to change myself because they wanted me to wear a suit and a tie and a jacket.
Really?
And I said, no, I don't even own a suit and a tie jacket. I don't want to wear it. I'm an Indian. I'm going to wear my Indian clothes. So, but being next to Jim, being next to Arlene, David Chilton, they were unbelievable mentors for me, and I'm still good friends with them. But I do believe that Dragon's Den was a show that made me feel that sometimes, even if it is really good and you really get the attention, if you don't feel it from the gut, don't do it. I felt I was done.
Yeah.
My time had come. I walked away from it. And most people would be like, really? You gave that up? I was like, yeah, but why? Because my core was my restaurants. My core is my production facility, and I didn't want to veer off from it. I felt that I was spending too much time in doing something else. I wanted to stay focused on this.
Right.
So entrepreneurial spirit of creating or being your own boss or business is natural. It was not that difficult for me. I grew up that way. My father was a businessman. I grew up that way. Haggling is part of my business. I constantly, I could be getting the best deal ever, but I'll still say, can I have it for 25% less, please? Because that's who I am, right? Even though I know in my mind.
You didn't do that with your Audi.
Audi was like that candy that I really wanted badly.
Oh, why didn't you tell us that beforehand?
No, I loved it. I'm such an Audi freak, and I love the car itself. Like, it drives beautifully. It just reminds me of who I am as a car, or as a human being. Like, Audi to me is like, wow. You know what my goal is, Christian, one day? Is to bring my Indian food back to India one day and let the Indians taste it and say, look, here it is. Delicious chickpeas grown in Canada, delicious water grown here. Here are some Indian spices. enjoy my cooking.
Indian food back in India via Austria and Canada.
Exactly.
One of the things that I know your fans, including myself and a lot of my friends and family that frequent your restaurants, one of the things they love is, of course, to see you.
Yes.
And as you expand, that will not be possible every time. How do you reconcile those two factors?
Great question. You know, I love people. I've always been a people's person. So what I do normally is I'll start my day in the factory in the morning, and then I'll come to my Shanti, which is my starting point. At around 5 o'clock till 7, I'll stay here. 7 o'clock, I'll go to Vij's. Vij's, then I go to Rangoli. Rangoli, I go to do Vij's. And around 8:30, 9 o'clock, I go home. And I work an average 12 to 14 hour days. So they may not get me every day, everywhere, but they do get me at some point or the other. And I'm not the kind of guy who's going to sit behind a desk and, put numbers out there. I love to talk to people, welcome people, say, come on in. I love the joie de vivre style of, that's my personality. That's always been that way. Yeah. And so it doesn't, you can't have me all the time, but chances are you're gonna run into me sometime or the other, and you're gonna say, oh my God, like he's here. It's only because I love what I do. I really do. I have great people, great chefs, great team that works with me. And without them, I would be nobody. Yeah. I have to say this, my women in the kitchen, my chefs in the kitchen, my front of the house is unbelievable. And they're my backbone and my soul. 8 to 10 years ago, while I was having this growth of getting the recognition and all that stuff, mentally I was going through some stuff like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? Because it's not like I went to a school to get my MBA and become a CEO of a company. I didn't. I was the CEO now, right?
You're writing the script as you're going along.
Exactly. So it's tough. I don't know. I mean, maybe you've gone to a proper school to know to be a CEO.
I don't know. They say, you know what? They say it's lonely at the top.
Is it true? It is very lonely at the top. So I decided to go to India, and I became homeless for 5 days just to see why the hell are all this attention given to me suddenly. And I kept my passport away, and for 5 days I kind of just slept on the streets, and I became homeless just to see what was happening. And I realized that I was no different than the other human being who was next to me. I just happened to be born to a father who could send me to a great school to become something of my own. And I said, I'm going to take that chance and do something with it, because there are not many people out there who get that kind of opportunity. That was an eye-opener for me, and it was such a touching moment when I became homeless, and the kind of stuff that happened. I was like, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I'm not this, that I could go, and the freedom of having a Canadian passport, that once that plane took off from India, I never had to look back to that poverty again. I was the master of my own destiny. That's how I felt. So that was a very powerful moment that I don't think I've shared with many people about it, because people see this as Chef Vikram and the owner of this, but there was a huge amount of turmoil going on in my mind. That what's going on? Marriage was a little bit tough. The kids were a little bit tough. Was I going to survive? Was I not going to survive? So, there were some eye-opening moments for me, for sure.
Yeah. Chef, entrepreneur, Vikram Vij.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Christian.
Thank you very much.